Welcome to the Curious Machine. Today we're doing a deep dive into something truly, astonishing about us humans. The size of our brains. I mean, just take a second to think about your own brain listening to this right now. It's enormous compared to most other mammals. If we were average for our body size, our brains would be something like 7.5 times smaller. It's kind of wild. And this single organ, it's the reason for everything we do, right? From us making this deep dive to you understanding it. So the big questions are, how did our brains get so incredibly large? And maybe the weirder question, why didn't this happen to, say, chimpanzees or dolphins in the same way?
Exactly. That's the puzzle we're digging into. We're looking at this unique cascade of evolutionary events that really sparked human intelligence. We'll
Hmm.
be drawing on a lot of research, kind of tracing our ancestors back over the last, 6 million years or so. And what's really striking is this clear acceleration in brain size in our lineage. It really takes off around 4 million years ago, give or take, and keeps going until we reach today's size, roughly 1,500 cubic centimeters.
Okay, so to really get this, we need to start right at the beginning with something called bipedalism. What exactly is that, and are there different kinds?
Right, bipedalism. Put simply, it's just moving around on land using only your two back legs or lower limbs. That includes standing, walking, running, even hopping, actually.
Yeah.
And there's a key difference people make. Facultative bipedalism, which is sort of optional. Think of a chimp standing up for a moment to grab some fruit. Then there's obligate bipedalism, which is, the normal way of getting around. Like us, that's how humans operate. But, it's interesting. You see flashes of bipedalism all over the place. Lizards sprinting away on two legs, bears rearing up to fight, meerkats, obviously, standing watch. Even octopuses sometimes walk on two arms along the seabed, and cockroaches can run incredibly fast on just their back legs.
Wow. Okay. So it's more common than I thought, in a limited way at least. But for our ancestors, what were the first real advantages of shifting more towards moving on two legs? Not just standing, but moving that way.
Well, there were some pretty general but powerful advantages early on. First off, just lifting your head higher gives you a much better view. You can spot danger further away or, see potential food sources. Secondly, it could help reach food that's a bit higher up using the mouth, and maybe the biggest one initially. It frees up your front limbs, your arms in our case, and those freed limbs can then do other things. For primates and rodents, that's manipulation. For birds, obviously flight. Pangolins use them for digging. Bears or monitor lizards might use them in fights. Even octopuses use their free arms for camouflage sometimes.
Okay, so freeing the hands, better vision. But how did this go from something maybe done occasionally to being the way we move, the permanent setup?
Yeah, that's the crucial transition. And it seems strongly linked to a major environmental change. Our ancestors moving out of the dense forests and into the much more open African savannas. Now, why they moved, there are several hypotheses. Could have been big fires, clearing areas, maybe more predators in the forests, food getting scarce, climate shifts, or maybe just population pressure, needing more space. But regardless of the exact why, the move to the savanna made bipedalism a huge survival plus. Think about it. In the forest, climbing is key. Moving quietly on all fours helps. Those advantages fade in the open grasslands. Other savanna animals have different strategies, right? Giraffes and elephants are just huge and tall. Meerkats are tiny and hide. Antelopes and zebras are built for speed. For our ancestors, who weren't particularly fast or big, being able to stand up and see over that tall grass to spot predators, or maybe find carcasses to scavenge, became really, really important. So it wasn't like inventing something brand new, more like doubling down on an ability they already sort of had.
And this connects to something else pretty surprising about surviving on the hot savanna.
It does, yeah. The heat? The open savanna is intensely hot, much more so than the shaded forest. And this became an even bigger issue as our ancestors started losing their body hair. Bipedalism, maybe unexpectedly, turned out to be a great way to handle the heat. Standing upright means much less of your body's surface is getting hit directly by the overhead sun, compared to being on all fours where your whole back is exposed. Plus, being higher off the ground puts you in slightly stronger wind currents, better airflow, which helps dissipate heat more effectively. You combine that posture with the evolution of really efficient sweat glands all over the body, and suddenly you got a powerful cooling system. This probably gave a strong push towards making bipedalism the default. But standing and walking on two legs isn't easy, biomechanically speaking. You're balancing on two small points, much trickier than four. Our feet actually changed quite a bit, losing that grasping ability they had for climbing trees, becoming more rigid platforms for balance and push-off. So what did this mean for the brain? Well, that constant, complex task of maintaining balance put significant evolutionary pressure on the brain. specifically leading to the enlargement of the cerebellum. That's the part at the back, largely responsible for coordinating movement and balance. And then, as we mentioned, freeing the forelimbs, that was huge. They didn't turn into wings or claws. They became hands, specialized for something else entirely.
Right, the hands were free. So what did they start doing with them that was so game-changing?
This is where it gets really interesting. Tool making. Not just using a handy rock, which lots of animals do, but actually shaping materials. That opposable thumb we inherited, originally great for gripping branches, turned out to be this amazing exaptation, a feature evolved for one purpose that becomes useful for another. It made manipulating and shaping things like stone and wood much easier. I mean, even the seemingly simple act of hitting one stone with another to create a sharp edge. That's the foundation for basically all technology that followed. You can draw a line, however long, from that first shaped stone to the device you're listening on right now. And making tools like that requires serious brain power. It pushed selection towards better planning and problem solving, which happens mostly in the frontal lobe, and also towards processing complex 3D visual information, seeing how the stone needs to be shaped, which involves the occipital lobe.
Okay, so making tools boosts planning and visual processing. How did that spiral into even more complex mental skills?
Well, once you have tools, you can use them more effectively for hunting, defense. And this brings in the need for really good hand-eye coordination, particularly for throwing. Think about something you might do every day, like throwing a wadded-up piece of paper into a bin across the room, or hitting a tennis ball. It feels automatic, but your brain is doing incredibly complex physics calculations in fractions of a second, judging the angle, the speed, the trajectory, adjusting your muscles, being able to accurately throw a spear or sharpened stone at prey, or perhaps to drive away a competitor. That ability became super important. This put even more pressure on the frontal lobe for that predictive planning, the cerebellum for fine-tuning all those muscle movements, and also the parietal lobe, which integrates sensory information, especially visual and spatial awareness.
Fascinating. So we're standing, we're making tools, we're throwing things. How did walking upright change how our ancestors moved over longer distances, not just short bursts?
That's another key advantage. Biomechanics for endurance. Humans were not great sprinters compared to, say, a cheetah. Absolutely not. But bipedal walking and running, especially at a steady pace, is incredibly energy efficient over long distances. We are fantastic marathon runners, relatively speaking. This involved physical changes too, like longer legs, which also helps with cooling, by the way, more surface area relative to volume, a bigger gluteus maximus muscle for stability, stronger leg muscles overall, and there's an interesting side effect on respiration, on breathing. When you're walking or running upright, your breathing isn't as mechanically constrained as it is in a four-legged animal, where the stride impacts the breathing cycle more directly. This allows for greater breath control.
Okay, breath control. How does that connect to intelligence? Seems like a bit of a leap.
It might seem that way, but think about the brain's energy needs. We said it's incredibly energy hungry, right? Efficient breathing means a better, more consistent oxygen supply to fuel that expensive brain. But maybe even more profound is the connection to language. The fine control over breathing muscles needed for sustained running or walking is very similar to the kind of breath control you need to produce complex, modulated sounds for speech. So some theories suggest that the evolution of breath control linked to bipedal endurance might have kind of paved the way for the physical capacity for spoken language.
Wow, okay. So the environment's changing, our bodies are changing, we're using tools. How did all this impact how our ancestors interacted with each other, their social lives?
Well, the savanna wasn't just hotter, it was often harsher, maybe riskier. This likely pushed our ancestors toward more complex social structures and increased cooperation. Hunting large animals, defending against predators, sharing resources, these things are much easier, or maybe only possible, in coordinated groups. And living in complex social groups puts a huge demand on the brain. It's cognitively very taxing. You have to remember who's who, understand their relationships to you and to others, track favors given and received, navigate dominance hierarchies, know who to trust, who to avoid. You have to constantly adapt your behavior depending on the social context, right? You act differently with close family than with strangers or rivals. All this social maneuvering created strong selection pressure for enlarging the temporal lobe, which is heavily involved in higher cognitive functions like memory, understanding language, crucial for social communication, recognizing faces, and processing social emotions.
Okay, so being smarter helped navigate the social world. But does it go beyond just survival? Did being smarter actually play a role in, well, attracting a mate?
Absolutely. We often focus on survival of the fittest, but evolution is just as much about reproduction of the fittest. You have to pass on your genes. And in this increasingly complex world, physically challenging savanna, intricate social dynamics, those cognitive abilities fostered by a larger brain became really attractive qualities in a potential mate. Think about it. Being a better tool maker might mean you're a better provider. Being socially savvy might mean you have higher status or more allies. Being a better communicator could strengthen pair bonds. It's a bit like, how some female birds prefer males who sing more complex songs. The complexity is an indicator of brain quality, of good genes. So hominins, who displayed more complex behaviors indicative of greater intelligence, likely had an edge not just in surviving but also in reproducing. This sexual selection, favoring smarter mates, probably worked hand in hand with natural selection to accelerate the growth of the neocortex, the outer layer of the brain responsible for our most advanced thinking.
Right, let's get to the fuel. This amazing growing brain, it must have been incredibly expensive to run, energetically speaking.
Oh, hugely expensive. As we touched on, the brain is only about 2% of your body weight, maybe a bit more, but it burns through about 20% of your total daily energy. That's enormous, like 10 times more than you'd expect for an organ of its size. So you can't evolve a brain like that unless you can consistently get enough high-quality energy to power it. And this points to another crucial factor, a major diet change. Our earliest ancestors, like chimps today, were probably mostly fruit eaters, maybe supplementing with some insects, leaves, occasional small bits of meat. But out on the savanna, reliable fruit sources might have been scarcer, more seasonal. This likely forced them to explore other options, tubers, nuts, seeds, maybe more insects. And critically, they seem to have started incorporating more meat into their diet. Initially, maybe mostly through scavenging carcasses left by predators. Later, developing into active hunters. Now, hunting is difficult and dangerous, but meat is incredibly dense in calories and nutrients compared to most plant foods. It provided that concentrated energy source needed to fuel the rapidly expanding, energy-guzzling brain. Without that shift towards more meat, it's hard to see how we could have afforded the metabolic cost of our intelligence. It might be the key that unlocked the potential for further brain growth.
Okay, so we have this incredible convergence, walking upright, free hands, tool making, growing, social complexity, sexual selection, dietary changes. If these things were so advantageous, why don't we see other animals with brains like ours? Why just us?
That really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? And the answer seems to be sheer improbability. It's about the unique combination and sequence of all these factors. Think about it. Getting all 10 of these pressures, bipedalism, savanna living, thermoregulation, balance demanding a bigger cerebellum, freed hands leading to tool making, hand-eye coordination for throwing, endurance running, complex social structures, sexual selection for intelligence, and a dietary shift to fuel it all happening in the right order, with the right intensity, sustained over millions of years. It's like winning a planetary lottery with incredibly long odds. The brain is just so costly, remember, 20% of your energy. If any of those pressures had eased up or hadn't been strong enough, the evolutionary trajectory might have stalled or gone in a completely different direction. Evolution doesn't keep investing in something so expensive unless there's a continuous strong payoff. Plus, you need the right underlying genetic potential, the raw material for these changes to build upon. It really illustrates something like chaos theory in evolution. Tiny initial differences in biology or environment can lead species down vastly different paths over long timescales. The famous butterfly effect, almost. But we do see hints of these factors in other intelligent animals, just not the full package. That's convergent evolution. Like ants and bees, they have incredibly complex social structures. Their limbs are freed up by having wings. They're arguably among the most intelligent invertebrates. But, no advanced hand-eye coordination for tools, no meat-heavy diet driving brain size. Or look at octopuses, very different lineage. Limited social life, obviously not bipedal. But living in water provides buoyancy, freeing up all 8 arms for amazing manipulation and coordination. They have a predator's diet meat. They likely have sexual selection based on displays, and they are stunningly intelligent in a very different way from us. And chimpanzees are closest relatives. They share many of these factors, especially social complexity and tool use, though less sophisticated tool making. They can be bipedal facultatively, but their diet isn't as consistently meat-rich, and their commitment to bipedalism is far less complete than ours. So highly intelligent, yes, but on a different scale. So it's not that humans are the only intelligent life, not at all. But the specific combination of all these factors hitting our lineage seems to be unique, leading to our particular brand and degree of intelligence.
So when we wrap all this up, what's the main takeaway here? It wasn't just one thing, was it?
Not at all. If you connect all of these dots, the big picture is that human intelligence wasn't a single invention or a sudden leap. It's this incredibly complex tapestry, woven from threads of environmental change, physical adaptations like walking upright, the social pressures of living in groups, the demands of new skills like tool making, and even what our ancestors ate. It's a story of contingency, feedback loops, and millions of years of gradual interconnected changes.
Which really makes you think. If our journey was so unique, so contingent on all these factors lining up just right, what does that imply about our future evolution? And how does knowing about these deep, deep roots maybe change how we think about ourselves and our path forward as a species? Something to ponder, perhaps?
Thank you very much for sharing this enjoyable conversation with us. Until we meet again tomorrow with a brand new topic, take very good care of yourselves. Goodbye.